They tried to stop my shine, but I said, hold up. Y'all know how many hoes done tried to hold this hoe up?
Tokyo
Start
boy.
the music. These bitches tighten they lips. I'm unredacted, sis. These bitches holding they tongue. I'm unredacted, son. Ha! Got what you want, got what you need. Got what you want, got what you need. Hey, 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 y'all, hey, y'all. What's going on? What's good? It's your boy Craig with the good old Craig's Pop Life podcast, a black gay excursion into pop culture. But you know where you are because it's where you at. I'm your host, Craig Seymour. You know me. Been writing about music for about 20 years now. You can catch a bitch archive at rnbeing.com. I'm also the author of 3 books. The biography, Luther, The Life and Longing of Luther Vandross. Shout out to the R&B legend whose birthday is on April 20th. So, for the Luther fan in your life, for yourself, maybe you read it, maybe you need to update yourself. You can check it out on paperback, you can check it out on ebook, you can even check it out on audiobook, and it's not read by me, so you won't have to listen to me any more than you need to. It's by somebody else because I wanted it to go down real nice and smooth, like you listening to the Quiet Storm or something. So it ain't read by me. But anyway, you should check that out and get yourself a good Luther playlist for April 20th and everything. And then you can check out my memoir about being a stripper hoe in grad school, a little something called All I Could Bear, My Life in the Strip Clubs of Gay Washington, D.C., my hometown. And then you can also check out my novel, Who's Your Daddy? About 3 generations of gay men looking for love. And if you got a little patience on you, you can check out my upcoming special, A Critical Meditation on the Life and Artistry of Janet Jackson, which I will get back to editing as soon as I finish this podcast. I know it's taking me a little bit longer than I thought, but it's got to be right, and so it's whatever. But y'all gonna get it soon. I think y'all gonna like it. So it is what it is. But so what's going on? I'm finally back home. I was gone from home for almost 2 weeks. It seems like I've been all up and through. I've been through Baltimore. I think I told you about that last week where I was talking to a class. Been up and through South Carolina, ran through Georgia right quick, and all on my way to, well, not all on my way, but I ultimately went to Montgomery, Alabama. Always wanted to, ever since the lynching memorial. That's not the technical term. The technical is, what's it called? I don't want to mess it. Now that I made a point of it, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. But I always wanted to go to it, so I just had an opportunity to go to Montgomery. It's not like you always find yourself in Montgomery. So I went. I can't necessarily, I've never been to Alabama before. I can't necessarily say that I'm, in a rush to go back, but I wanted to go for the historical purposes. And for that, it definitely delivered. First up, I hit the Rosa Parks Museum. And unfortunately, I was running late. Like I was trying to and it's kind of confusing. There's like 2 parts to it and all that kind of stuff. But I went there one day, and I thought they did a really good job of contextualizing her life within the context of the Montgomery bus boycott, and recognizing some of the other folks who were arrested before her. And I think when it comes to Rosa Parks, she's just one of those figures that I think. Sometimes when we lionize people, when we make people icons, and we reduce their work to one thing. Like we think, oh, Parks wouldn't move from the bus and everything like that. But the more I learn about Rosa Parks, just so and I'm not just talking about the pancake recipe that came up not that long ago where she puts the peanut butter in the pancakes. I still want to try that. But anyway, and she wrote it on the back of the envelope. And anybody that grew up like with grandmamas like mine, you know how people they would not waste a piece of paper. If a good envelope could be used to write something down, then it's gonna be used. But that's neither here nor there. But just learning about all the other stuff that she did, like how she, as secretary of the NAACP, she really did a lot for trying to research things and help women who were victims of racially motivated sexual violence, like Reese Taylor, who Oprah discussed in her Golden Globe speech, that made all the white people go crazy. It drives me nuts when people are surprised by black excellence. It's like Oprah has been talking since she was a little girl in church and made her whole career talking. So while y'all wilding after she just gives one speech. But anyway, she mentioned Reese Taylor, and Reese Taylor was one of the women that Rosa Parks helped. And there's a lot about her. I think I've recommended this book before, but I do recommend this book. There's a lot about her in Rebecca Traister's Good and Mad: The Revolutionary Power of Women's Anger. It's just a fantastic book. I definitely recommend you check that out. And then I have another book that's on my reading list that also deals with her. So if y'all have read it, or maybe we should start a book club or something or whatever, but it's definitely on my list. It's called At the Dark End of the Street: Black Women, Rape, and Resistance, A New History of the Civil Rights Movement from Rosa Parks to the Rise of Black Power by Danielle McGuire. And it ain't a new book or anything like that, but it's just, it's an important book, so I definitely want to get around to it. So that's on the reading list. I'm currently reading something that's a really funny memoir called "What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker" by Damon Young. He's an editor over at The Root, and he's also the co-founder of Very Smart Brothers. I don't know if you've ever, checked out that site, but it's really, really funny and very thought-provoking. So I'll tell y'all more about it when I finish it, but I'm really enjoying it so far. That was one of the things that I was reading on my travels. So the day after the Rosa Parks Museum, that's when I went to what's often referred to as the Lynching Memorial, but is actually the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. And I mean, I can't even overstate, sometimes like the word moving is kind of reductionistic because it's just used so much. But, just as a black person, whenever I'm in a space that is either being used as a tribute to some of the struggles of black people or as an actual site of like a auction site. You see that a lot in like South Carolina, like Charleston and stuff like that. Just that feeling of kind of like, I know just the anger at the situation, but then also kind of just seeing yourself in the situation and just knowing that it definitely is something that your ancestors had to deal with. Like there's no question of the fact that, like, when I go to one of the kind of slave auction spaces in Charleston, some of my peoples came in through a place like that. You know what I mean? And when you think of something like lynching, whether or not anybody in my background or something actually had that, actually was murdered like that. It's just that, I mean, living with the fear of hanging from a tree and just like living in like a small town where white folks are having picnics and stuff and chopping off people's body parts as somebody's hanging, and like you have to like not only experience the trauma of that, but also know that the white people that you're dealing with on the daily, like the white shopkeeper and all that kind of stuff, these are people that were taking part in this horrific thing. So, again, I just think it's impossible as a black person to not just feel like a rush of just different types of emotions and feelings in a space like that. And like I said, I don't think moving encapsulates it. It's just I don't know. But basically, what's so sort of haunting about it is you walk through and there are these big sort of steel slabs hanging from the ceiling, obviously, um, hanging for a reason. And each one of them has like a given state and a county, and then it has the names of lynching victims of that state and the county, of that county and that state. So you're just walking through, and man, like you're just seeing names after names and place after place after place, and it's just, just you talk about terrorism, like just the racial violence and just seeing how many people were affected. And then after you see the hanging slabs, they're identical copies of the slabs, then lying flat on the ground, kind of coffin like. So you really just get the whole experience of like, I mean, it's just horrific, thinking of somebody being hung and then like maybe their relatives or something then have to cut them down and then give them burial. I mean, it's just too much to even think about sometimes. But I was really struck by. I just had this weird experience in that one of the um, one of the people, the lynching victims that was memorialized, was named Alan Seymour, and the thing that really kind of shook me about that is that my middle name is Alan. My name is Craig Allen Seymour, and it's not. It's my father's name. It's a family name, so the name has some roots, some history of which I don't know. And unfortunately, my grandmother has passed. I never knew my biological grandfather. Um, but so anyway, but the thing that's interesting to me is that my middle name is spelled Allen, and I know that's not that uncommon, but growing up and stuff, I would always have to spell it for people. People would always get it wrong. So something about that having the same spelling, Allen, just kind of struck me. And then my last name is spelled Seymour, and people are always fucking that up. People are always trying to do Seymore or some such, So just this name, it just really, I was just like, whoa, I mean, already in a feeling of like an empathetic feeling of putting myself in the place of living in that time where lynching was such a constant threat, but then seeing a name that was so similar to mine. So of course, I took a picture of it because I just to remember it and everything, and I put it on social media, just whatever. But a lot of people got it misconstrued and thinking that was somebody that I knew was a relative of mine, and that wasn't the case. Although when people asked, "Are you related to this person?" I really couldn't say I wasn't either because that's just life as a black person in as a American descendant of slaves. It's that our family histories have holes in them. So I don't know, but it was just a weird coincidence to me, and it just really, I don't know, like it's just one of those. I can't put it in words, but it was just a feeling and a memory that will never leave me. So that was my Montgomery experience, and I definitely would recommend you taking the time to go to make your way. I don't know where y'all be going that you pass through Alabama, but if you do, I definitely think that you should make the time to go to the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. And actually, it would be a cute day trip, because there's not much going on in Montgomery. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. So there's no reason to even stay overnight. But if you could like get a cute flight in and go to the memorial, maybe take your family, maybe make it a family trip. Maybe y'all drive, maybe y'all fly into Atlanta and drive or something like that, whatever. And then just go to the memorial, and then you go out and then you leave in time to eat dinner at some place halfway decent. But I think it's definitely worth it, and I'm really glad that I went. So that's what I did last weekend. And of course, then I thought there were all sorts of things I was going to want to talk about this week, like Ariana Grande's little Coachella performance, and or the movie Guava Island. Did y'all watch that? With Donald Glover and Rihanna, they are in a relationship, and their relationship is really cute. They really have this cute chemistry, and I enjoyed it. Some people were, I thought, a little bit extra critical of it, but I really, really enjoyed it, and you should definitely check that out if you got the good Amazon Prime, as I know a lot of you all probably do. Um, but of course, nobody wants to hear about any of that stuff now. Nobody wants to hear about anything but Beyonce's Homecoming, of course, the movie and the album. And that's all I'm going to talk about because basically that covers all my pop culture bases, right? Because it's music, it's film because it's a film, but it's also TV because you watch it on the Netflix. And then there've been enough think pieces about it to make up a damn book. So it's almost like a book too. So and I was one of those folks that, last year around 3 a.m. when the original performance took place, I was there with my computer, watching it live, praying, Lord, please don't let my stream freeze. Please don't let it freeze. And I may have had to refresh a couple times, but in general, I got the whole thing, and it was just such a powerful performance like nothing I've ever seen before. Never witnessed such a sort of celebration of blackness in that way, in such a large way for such a large audience. So I, like everybody else, there's nothing unique about my experience of seeing Beachella the first time, but I definitely shared that sense of awe that a lot of people felt when they first saw it. So there I was again in front of my Netflix. What was it, Tuesday night, or Wednesday morning, 3 a.m., refreshing my Netflix, refreshing and refreshing. And at first it wasn't out at exactly 3 a.m. So I was tight. Like I was like, I did not stay up this late. Y'all better get this thing together. But after a couple of, good refreshes, I think it came up like around 3:05. So I was cool. And I mean, it's a Beyonce thing. So how was it not? I'm not gonna like it. You know what I mean? Like I expected to love it. And I've been all prepared, child. I watched my Life Is But a Dream beforehand, and it was so interesting, right? Watching Life Is But a Dream again, because I remember being so. I mean, I've watched this thing. I've watched that documentary just dozens of times, but I have not watched it probably in the last year or two, and that film kind of documents Beyonce transitioning from being kind of a mainstream, R&B pop star to becoming an artist where she really wasn't thinking about the charts, she wasn't thinking about radio and thinking about anything. But it's like she has moved so far from that point. I mean, that was before Self-Titled, that was before Lemonade, before Beachella. So it was really wild to watch that and think like that was such a big deal and such a revolutionary move at the time because she really that has turned out to just be like that's just the runway. You know what I mean? She hadn't even taken off yet at that point. So that was really kind of an interesting experience. But anyway, so like I said, I had done my research. I was ready. And I didn't really think I could be taken by the performance as much as the first time I've seen it because I have watched Beachella several times. I have the bootleg, I've watched it kind of on the regular. But I was just blown away. I mean, I was really blown away by the editing of the two performances. I mean, that was really a nice thought out thing in advance because all of us who had seen them yellow outfits to death, we could now have the fuchsia experience. You know what I mean? And that was just great. And I might even say like in terms of film or whatever, like I kind of like the fuchsia a little bit better, maybe. I definitely liked her hair better, like pulled off her face. I thought that was really fierce. So all of that was again, I don't really have anything unique to say. About that. And of course, I love the documentary parts and all that kind of stuff. Um, Moving on to the album. So many people are like, oh, Beyonce dropped an album. Beyonce dropped it the next day. Beyonce dropped a new album. And I'm thinking I'm getting a whole new album. The way people were talking about it. Now, love the fact that I finally get a nice copy of Beachella. Like I'm overwhelmed, but I just thought people were doing a little bit too much talking about I just wish they had just said she unexpectedly dropped the live version of Beachella because I was like shit, well, she's doing the most, but it's great because I can finally delete all the bootleg little half-ass low quality MP3s I've been listening to all year. Nice not trying to have to mix my own version. Sometimes I'd be like if I'm on a run or something, I'd be playing Everybody Mad and then real quick play Diva, hoping I can get that experience. So it'd be nice not having to piece together that on my own. Um, I can finally delete my SoundCloud download of I've been on for like how long? I mean, what 5 6 years ago or whatever. Finally can delete that. And of course, how brilliant of it was her to cover Before I Let Go, and then to incorporate the Candy beat. Like she just wants to own. I mean, between that and the extended mix of Get Me Body, she got every black function on lock. Like you don't even need to bring. I mean, as long as you have whatever on your phone, as long as you have the Homecoming live album, you basically can have people straight for a whole black event. You have the whole shit covered. So I just thought that was really incredible. Sidebar though, did y'all just because everybody's making such a big deal about? I mean, and a big deal should be made about B's cover of Before I Let Go. But did y'all know that Mary J. Blige did a cover of Before I Let Go? You should definitely. It's much more laid back, much more toward the original. But I mean, Mary does a good job, so that's definitely worth putting it in your little Spotify, or like me, you put it in on your title because I support black businesses, and looking up Mary J. Blige's version of Before I Let Go, because she does a good job too. But again, Beyonce just takes it to a whole nother level with the candy beat and then the new lyrics toward the end and everything. So, it's no contest, but not that there would ever be a contest anyway. But, you know, like I said, as you're listening to Before I Let Goes, you might want to give Mary's a spin too. Um, but I just think it's really incredible for her to have created something that just encapsulates her whole career when she's really at a peak. I'm not saying it is her peak. I'm not saying she's not going to have additional peaks, but as a man of a particular age, I know good and well that, you know, 50 ain't 40, 40 ain't 30, and 30 damn sure ain't 20. So it's like there is a certain point when you're at your peak of athleticism. Like any athlete knows that. You know what I mean? So that's not so just for her to be able to see at that peak kind of performance, and just to have it's like it's almost like a time capsule. I mean, at any point, you can just take this, and if people say, "Oh, why was Beyonce such a great performer?" Here, watch this, and talk to me in about 2 hours and 17 minutes. Talk to me then. You know what I mean? And I just thought that that was so amazing. It's something I wish more performers had actually. Because there's so much more than just watching a tour that was um related to an album. Like, you get this era tour, then you get that era tour. With Homecoming, it's like you get her sort of looking back on her entire career, but through the lens of putting her performances through the lens of the black performance tradition of forged by black sororities and fraternities. And this can't really be just. I mean, I think people don't. I think people talk about it like that that she's paying homage to HBCUs um, and everything like that. And she's definitely doing that. But I think people miss how integral HBCUs are to the African American historical experience. Like, it's one thing now to decide, oh, I'm going to go to Spelman or Morehouse or Howard or wherever you're going to go. But when you take it back, it's not really a choice because you wasn't going to Harvard or wherever you wasn't going there. Most black people were educated at the HBCUs because those were the only places that they could get in. That was for us. So I think it's really important to look at that, because sometimes there can even be a weird thing where, like, if you went to an HBCU and you pledged like a fraternity or sorority, like you feel a little different from other people that didn't necessarily have that experience and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's important to realize that the core of that experience is something that affects all African American people because you know, if you trace it back, and a bitch does his research because, like, I don't got the PhD for nothing. I'm paying these student loan bills. I might as well, Google Scholar some things and look some shit up. Um, one thing I just thought was really interesting. I came across this, just the whole back to Africaness of it all, is that some people have traced the whole act of playing an instrument while simultaneously dancing back to Europe of funeral processions, like back to the 13th century and shit. So just that whole move has that whole, back to Africa type situation, as many of our traditions do. Even the way I speak in some um, sense, you can trace back African American vernacular English, certain use of the verb tenses and certain things like that. You can take that back to certain West African languages. So whatever, but that's so it's us, and that's there. And in terms of this country's history, and this is stuff shit I did not know, so I'm telling y'all that I researched this stuff specifically when I was looking. Actually, I did it last year when I was just trying to find some just context about Beachella last year and just understanding the importance of sort of the marching band tradition. But like I didn't realize, like, during colonial times, black men were forced to serve in the militia, but they ain't trust us with no guns and shit. So we had musical instruments. So that was kind of the introduction to musical instruments that a lot of black men had is through the army. And then around the time of the War of 1812, black regiments were called the United States Colored Troops. Okay, so there were different colored troops, and each one had a band. So again, more people serving, more people learning musicianship through the military. Um, and then over time, like there was this one, they all had like different names with the troops and stuff. There was this one troop with their band was called the Harlem Hellfighters, and they even performed in Paris. So it's like they were getting international acclaim. And taking it back home, a lot of times the bands for the troops would march through towns in order to recruit new people to the military. And the reason that's so significant historically is that you're talking about a time when the city streets, those were ruled by white folks. And the movements of black folks, especially black folks congregating and shit, like in mass, those things were very much policed by white people and black folks, like I said, in mass. I mean, a couple of black folks together still make people nervous. So it's like that was very much under surveillance. But during parades where these black marching bands, would perform, they could occupy public space in a way that black people could not under normal circumstances. So I thought that was very significant too. And especially if you think of like the marching bands back in the day occupying this white space, and then Beyonce with Beachella taking this her version of her version of a marching band, her drum line, and putting that in Coachella, which is such a especially the main stage of Coachella, which is such a traditionally white space, and then she, as she acknowledges, she's the first African American woman to headline Coachella, and ain't that a bitch about a bitch? You know what I mean? So that whole idea of using music and using a marching band to occupy white space is sort of on a continuum with what was going on back in the day. And and then the other thing is that, okay, so many black people, black men, let's be real, in the military were trained as musicians as a part of the military. So then a lot of times when they got out of the military, they would go to HBCUs because that was the only place they could teach, and they would teach music. So, and they would bring with them that marching band tradition. So you just have generations upon generations, teaching this tradition, and that is the tradition that ultimately leads us to Beachella. And that's why I said it's about all of us. It's not just about those of us who went to HBCUs. It really does affect and influence the entire African American experience. So anyway, I just thought that was important to add to the conversation, because other than that, I really don't have anything else to say, but that it was, that I loved it as much as everybody else loves it, and I think it's as important as everybody else thinks is important. And I don't want y'all to waste any more time listening to me when you could be watching or listening to the album. I'm probably at about, I think I'm about 2 times have listened to the album, and then I'm about 2.5 times have watched Homecoming. And damn, it just came out yesterday. But anyway, that's life. But yeah, I've watched it about 2.5 times now. So anyway, so in closing, thank you for riding with me for another week. Please don't forget to subscribe and to tell a friend. And until next week, you know what it is. Be cool, be kind, be creative, and in the words of my fave,
Be your damn self.
all right, love y'all. Bye.